Hello and welcome back to reaDIYsteaDIY. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining us. If you've already subscribed, thank you for subscribing. Well, today I have to check the voltage coming out of a power supply that's kind of difficult to get a lead into. I've got a bunch of different leads. Every one I try, it's just too tight in there. But there's a trick I learned a long time ago that's going to help me with this. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do right now. So if that sounds interesting, stick around till the end. For now, let's get going. So a few weeks back when I did the video about restoring the ColecoVision, I showed you how I would check the power supply before plugging it into the ColecoVision in order to confirm that the voltage coming out of it was correct. You always want to do that with any piece of vintage electronic equipment. If the power supply is bad and you plug it into the video game system, computer, whatever you got, you can seriously damage things quite a bit. Sometimes the power supply is really easy to check, but sometimes you get into a situation where you have to connect your multimeter and it's just really tough. There's little pins inside, they're all really close. It's really hard to get a multimeter in there, even if you know which pin is what, and actually take a reading without potentially bridging between the pins and causing damage. It's kind of like a game of operation. No one's hands are that steady. Something that was taught to me a long time ago, and I think this trick is pretty good, is using some heat shrink. Heat shrink, as I'm sure you know, is something you slide over a soldered joint and then apply heat to in order to shrink the heat shrink down and provide insulation for the electrical connection you made. That's the normal use for heat shrink. In this case, I'm not going to heat it up. I'm not going to shrink it down. I'm just going to use it to help me test the output of this particular power supply. So I just slide the piece of heat shrink over the pin, slide my probe into the heat shrink, and now I've made contact with the pin. The lead is only touching the pin. It's not touching anything else. And I can do the same thing with the pin right next to it if I want. And I will have completely discrete, completely separate connection between each of these test leads and the pins that I want them to make contact with only. Minimal risk of shorting or making contact with a pin I don't want to make contact with, and no risk of getting a bad reading because I don't have good contact. That's how I check a power supply like this when it's really difficult or potentially dangerous to do it otherwise. So how about you guys? Do you have any multimeter tricks you could show me? Feel free to leave that in the comment section below. I want to hear. But otherwise, I hope that helped you out. If it did, please feel free to like or subscribe. Liking and subscribing can really help a channel. And if you could do that for this channel, I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, take care, stay safe, have fun with your DIY projects, and I'll see you next Saturday.